Shalom. I want to start off by saying Kal Halal Yamla, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rekak. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone for teaching us His truth and who rule well. Peace and citations unto the Akim that is spread around the four corners of the earth, spreading this word in sincerity and in truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. I'm the brother Quatazab Zayan from the GMS Holland branch, coming back through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai with another lesson, with another video, and Lord willing, this video is edifying. So in this lesson, I want to go into the topic of the Dutch farmers, what's going on here, in Holland. So I got this video that I'm going to play, and afterwards that I'm going to dive into the scriptures.
This video was brought to you by Brilliant, and the first 200 people to sign up using the link below will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. For the last few weeks or so, the Netherlands has been paralysed by farmers protesting the country's new environmental targets. Videos of Dutch farmers attacking police cars with hammers, towing them with tractors, or ramming police barricades have been going viral on Twitter, and there's even been reports of police firing at farmers. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the protests themselves, what's caused them, and what might happen next. For some context, despite its small size, the Netherlands is actually an agrarian powerhouse. According to 2019 data from the Dutch government, the Netherlands is the world's second largest food exporter by value, only falling behind the United States. Of its 82 billion euros worth of agricultural exports, the vast majority go to its European neighbours, with Germany accounting for about a quarter of all exports. In fact, the agricultural sector in the Netherlands constitutes around 10% of the Dutch economy and employs more than 660,000 people, representing about 4% of the country's population. Add to that, more than half of the land in the Netherlands is used for farmland, with 56% for arable and horticultural crops, 42% for permanent grassland, and 2% for permanent crops. Anyway, agriculture's outsized role in the national economy means that it's responsible for a significant fraction of the Netherlands' total greenhouse gas emissions. It's estimated that Dutch agriculture accounts for about 14% of all national emissions and about 40% of all nitrogen emissions. Anyway, in 2019, the Council of the State, an advisory body to the government headed by the King himself, ruled that the Netherlands' existing environmental regulations are insufficient in order to meet their nitrogen oxide and ammonia emission goals. So, in order to meet those standards, which are dictated by laws and treaties that the Netherlands is part of, the government announced that they'd be taking radical steps in order to curb their emissions. This meant significant reductions to agriculture, given that it accounts for about 40% of all nitrogen emissions in the country, which is why the first farmers' protests began all the way back in 2019, until COVID put a stop to them. However, protests restarted last month in response to another proposal from the government to pursue a net 50% reduction in nitrogen oxide and ammonia emissions by 2030. With the EU's Natura 2000 areas being subject to an even larger 75% reduction. Now, while nitrogen only accounts for about 6% of global warming, deposition of excess nitrogen into the land degrades the broader ecosystem and therefore reduces biodiversity, which is why this is such a pressing issue for the government. Now, the major contributor to nitrogen emissions is farm cattle, which account for about 60% of all agricultural nitrogen, which is why the plan aims to reduce the number of cattle by 30%, requiring the elimination of 1 million cows and 4 million pigs. And as you'd expect, this didn't go down too well with farmers. So on June 22nd, thousands of them took to their tractors and headed to the centre of the capital, causing widespread traffic chaos in protest. And in the week since, the protests have spread to the rest of the Netherlands, and there have even been solidarity protests from farmers in Germany, Italy, Poland, and Spain. As well as using their tractors to bring the country to a standstill, Dutch farmers have also sprayed government buildings with manure and blockaded distribution centres, leading to empty shelves in supermarkets. So, why are the protesters causing so much chaos? Well, the farmers have three related but distinct complaints. Firstly, they think that the required cuts are too demanding. While the government have created a €1 billion fund to help farmers make the targets, reducing cattle by 30% will almost definitely put some farmers out of business. And there's been speculation that the government will have to nationalise land to meet the target. Secondly, they argue that they've already done their bit to help the environment. And to be fair to the farmers here, since the 70s, agricultural emissions have fallen by about 30% per pig and 45% per cow. The use of fertilizers has also been halved, and nitrogen emissions are down 56%. Thirdly, farmers argue that there's not much point reducing emissions. Despite being one of the largest producers by value, the Netherlands are only the 60th largest agricultural producer in the world. So even if they do reduce the number of cows, the farmers claim that this will just mean consumers buying their meat from other, under-regulated, poorer countries like Brazil, which will do just as much damage to the environment. In fact, farmers argue that while agricultural emissions might contribute significantly to climate change, as much as 45% by some estimates, ultimately any significant reduction in emissions will require action from bigger, more intensive producers too, like China and India. Now, the debate here essentially revolves around the tragedy of the commons. No one country alone can make a decisive difference to climate change, which means it's in no single nation's self-interest to pursue overly costly climate strategies. Which means that often people don't want to do anything at all. Anyway, in response, the government has said that they're willing to negotiate, but has ruled out backing down on its general strategy. However, it is worth mentioning that the government's position is coming under increasing pressure. Polling from late June found that the Farmer Citizen Movement, a fringe party that won just 1% of the vote in the 2021 general election, was now the second most popular party in the country, and would win 18 seats in the 150-seat parliament if an election were to be held today. That same polling found that the farmers' protests were becoming a real swing issue, with many voters signalling that they would change their vote if their preferred party changed its position on the farmers' protests. And with food prices already at all-time highs, it's clearly in the government's interest to get these protests under control as soon as possible. As a final thing, these protests are interesting because they're a case study in the amount of political will for costly environmental policies in Europe. So far, Europeans have mostly been in favour of green policies. However, this is in part because Europe has only done the easy bits of the green transition, changing from coal to gas, improving insulation, tweaking financial incentives to balance out energy consumption, that kind of thing. And it's possible that if Europe really wants to be net zero by 2050, future green policies will require greater sacrifice. And at least for the moment, no one knows how much Europeans will be willing to sacrifice in the name of net zero. And while this is only one data point, it does suggest that the answer is, well, not as much as many would have predicted. In the end then, we'll just have to wait and see how these protests play out and how Europe reacts. But this is the ultimate problem-solving exercise, something which is always at the heart of politics, whether it be making the electorate happy or trying to tackle climate change. So, if you want to be able to do what politicians often can't, then consider signing up to Brilliant. That's the STEM learning platform which actually features a class on the joy of problem solving. In that class, like all of their others, they use active learning techniques to help you learn complex subjects, like logical reasoning, deducing facts from fiction, and logic puzzles, with you learning through fun and engaging activities. These interactive classes cover all kinds of STEM topics too, from computer science and cryptocurrency to statistics and casino probability. So if you want to take your next step in STEM and support the channel at the same time, then you can sign up to Brilliant at brilliant.org/TLDREU. And the first 200 people to do so will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for your support.
Gone. So let's go to the scriptures for the answers. because everything is being explained in the scriptures, because we are living in a time of prophecy, and you see prophecies are popping off left and right. Prophecies are being fulfilled, and we're living in the time of second Ezra 16. And let me jump to verse 21. The second Ezra 16, verse 21. Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth that they shall think themselves to be in a good case. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. So this is what the time we're living in. Because if you go into that word victuals, it means food. Food shall be so good cheap upon earth. Everything was if you would go to the cheapest stores, you could find canned foods for 50 cents and stuff like that. Also fruit, real cheap, because of the farmers, because of everything is flourishing. But now, the way things are going, the elites, they're forwarding their agenda little by little, because like the man said, in 2019, the farmers started to protest, but then you had this Windows 19 came around, so they stopped that with that intrusion of that Windows 19, so that stopped the farmers in their tracks. So now, fast forward 2 years later, and Holland being a very strong agricultural country, like the man said, which is also written in the Bible, that you're going to have strong countries and countries that are not so strong. Let's go to that real quick before I go on. In the book of Daniel 2, verse 33. Because that's the feet, the legs of iron and clay, which we're living in right now, the Roman revived empire. This is Daniel 2, verse 33. His legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay, which the iron represents the strong countries, like you just saw, the Dutch, the Germany, for example. Those are the strong nations, and the weaker nations, they are trying to lynch onto this. They are a part of the EU, but they can't really stick together, the strong and the weak nations. The weak nations, for example, Greece, and they cannot keep up with these strong nations. Let me jump to Daniel 4 and 42 and 43. It's Daniel 2, verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, for they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. You see? So this situation, which is happening right now, has already been foretold in the time of Daniel, in the time of Babylon, when King Nebuchadnezzar, he had that dream, and Daniel, the Israelite, he broke down what that all meant, So the Dutch, being a strong agrarian, agricultural country, being only second to America in food export and giving 82 billion in export, this nation, the Dutch, they're strong. They're one of the strong nations, you see. So they're one of the strong influencers, you see. So going back, 2 Ezra 16, verse 21, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth that they shall think themselves to be in a good case. So nobody was really worrying about food, you see, because everything was so good and cheap. We had the farmers. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Gone. So now is the time that judgment is being passed from the Most High. The Most High is just like how the elder apostle Tahar, he deemed this year the year of the turn up. Man, Esau is also turning up so that the Most High can turn up, you know? You see, Esau, he's forwarding his plans. You see what happened to the Georgia Guidestones. And right before that, he opened up the portal from CERN, you know? So everything is going at full speed right now. Everything is being turned up, you see? So let's go to 2nd Ezra 6. Bear with me for a second. Second Ezra 6, verse 22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Gone. And that's what was happening in this time, you know. That's what also, what was it, 2 days ago happened. Here. This is from rtveast.nl. There's an article, blocking in consultation. This is how farmers do it at the distribution center in Raalte. This is from July 14th. That's 2 days ago, you know. And this is pictures. These are pictures of the distribution centers being blocked by the farmers because they're not wanting to comply to what the government wants, you know. They want their land back. They don't want to have these high debts in where the country is going to take over their farms, you know, just so they can pay off that debt. Here.
Zegt u sierbestrating, tuintegels en tuinmaterialen? Dan zegt u Buitenbeton de Vries Hengelo. Bij ons bent u ook aan het juiste adres wanneer uw huis een metamorfose verdient. In onze vernieuwde showroom vindt u een ruim assortiment aan vloer- en wandtegels. We zien u graag aan de Torenlaan 38 in Hengelo.
God, I'm not going to play everything, but I'm going to put this article so you can read for yourself in the description box. Let's see. Let me read a part. The Salakia. The I don't know how you pronounce this word. The municipality of Raalte does not want to blockade at the distribution center at all. The activists prefer to secure everything. Both parties reached an interim solution this afternoon. Each jumbo truck may be stopped for a maximum of 10 minutes. A polder model for the actions. So this is what's happening right now. You know, and we also know that you have these Romeos, you know, which act like they're part of the farmers, but they are there to escalate the situation so that the military and the police can take action. You know, so don't be fooled by all these protests. You know, you also have agents that are in them, you know. Let me see. And also what happened, people destroyed a building, you know, it went into flames. And the accusations were that it was Bill Gates' owned company, you see. So what they are also basically doing is that they're causing some collateral damage to be done on their system, you know. And now I found this article, which is probably something that they throw out there, just like the fact checking. You know, when you find this article, then it says, no, it's not claimed by Bill Gates. But we all know that these fact checking websites, they are full of nonsense. They just push the narrative even further, you know. So you think that you're checking a fact, but it's not, it's misguiding, it's misleading, you know, it's misleading you from the truth. So when you see articles like this, you know, take it with a grain of salt, because we know that Bill Gates was still making moves to buy Picnic, which is a Dutch distribution company, you see. So in this article, then they state it's not owned by Bill Gates. Let me read a quick part. The destroyed Dutch building was factory owned by Bill Gates. This was July 12th. Claim: a Bill Gates factory that produced lab-grown synthetic meat burned down in the Netherlands. AP's assessment, which this is, here's where the lying comes. This is where the so-called fact check comes. False. While a distribution center operated by a Dutch online grocery service was destroyed in a fire in the eastern Netherlands, the faculty was not a factory that produced meat alternatives, nor was owned or operated by Gates. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust invested in the e-grocer in 2021, but the trust is not a controlling shareholder. Okay, so I'm gonna jump around. I'm gonna put this also in the description box. The faculty that burned down on Sunday night was a distribution center operated by Picnic, a Dutch online grocery service founded in 2015 that allowed users to order groceries using a mobile app and have them delivered. You see, so it's about Picnic. There was a part that I wanted to read. Bear with me for a second. Because it also shows you that Bill Gates, he owns a lot of farmland in America. So what is keeping him from also controlling the food supply here in Europe, in Holland? You know, that's only the next step. Let me see. I think it's this article. So this is the next article from newsweek.com. And it reads, Bill Gates linked sustainable grocery store mysteriously burned down. So this is the part. This is news of the Gates link to the supermarket that has gone up in flames sparked conspiracy theories online that the store was targeted by arsonists. Gates, a keen environmentalist who is the largest private owner of farmland in America with more than 270,000 acres across the U.S., is reportedly viewed with suspicion by some farmers who had staged protests in the Netherlands recently. You see? So Gates, which is the largest private owner of farmland in America, what is keeping him from also owning the next thing that is going to be here in Holland, which is not the land, because the land is going to go to the government. But if the government decides to tighten up and squeeze the farmers and the distribution of the farming products, then what's going to be next in line if the government tightens that up, if the government closes that faucet? that the next best thing is the online deliveries, and if Bill Gates also owns that, he's going to be one of the largest food controlling private owners of this world, because he has farmland and he has online services here in Europe. So let's go to this quote, which is from Henry Kissinger. He says, "Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls the money can control the world." But the emphasis is on the first one. Who controls the food supply controls the people. And that's where they're going towards. They want to have power over the people. You see? They are going to own the farmlands. They're going to own the food, And with they, I mean the elites, the elites of Esau, Edom, the so-called white men. You see? So these people, you got some dummies still out there that trust in the government, that trust in that they have your best intentions, they have the best intentions with you. But that's not the case, man. So let me close it off with this scripture. And let me go to Isaiah 30, verse 2 and 3. This is Isaiah 30, verse 2. Let me start at 1. Isaiah 30 and 1. "Woe to the rebellious children, said the Most High, that take his counsel, but not of me, and that cover with the covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin." So the rebellious children, which are the Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, and they don't take counsel of the Most High, but they cover themselves with a covering and keep adding sin upon sin. And what is sin? Sin is transgression of the law. Verse 2, "That walk to go down into Egypt," who is the modern day Egyptian? That's Esau. Because back in the day, in the time of Egypt, you had the Pharaoh and the Egyptians, but that's symbolic for the times that we're living in right now. We're speaking about the modern day ruler, because this is also a prophetic scripture. You see? So that walk to go down into Egypt, which is the so-called white man, he's the ruler right now. It doesn't matter if he's from America or if he's from Holland or Germany or Russia. They are the rulers right now. They are the modern day Egyptians and pharaohs. "And have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh." The Pharaoh is the king of the Egyptians. "And to trust in the shadow of Egypt." So let's go into that word shadow. Shadow, which is tazal, the outline of biblical usage, says shade, shadow, defense. And if you go to the root word tazalal, the outline of biblical usage says to be or become or grow dark, the shadow, the shade, begin to dark. The image and the likeness and the heathen gods. Yeah, man. There's also what our people believe in. They're the heathenistic gods, the image of these Egyptians, of the Edomites. But going back to Tazal, which it also means defense. So people, they believe in the protection that the Pharaoh is giving them. So they believe in the government. So the government must have my best interest in mind, right? No, man. This is Isaiah 30, verse 3. "Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion." Yeah, man. So now that they're shaking everything up, they're creating this chaos, you are going to be in a chaotic state of mind also. You're going to be confused also. But the men of the Lord, the servants, the prophets, they are not going to be confused and shaken out of their wits, because we trust in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. We trust in the process. We trust that these prophecies are coming to pass right before our eyes, and we are not being shaken by these things. You see? Gone. So, with that, I want to say Kal Halal Yamla, Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahushai, Ba'asham Rekah Kodash. I hope this video is edifying, and until the next time, Shalom Akim.